Hello adventurers, and welcome back to my channel. Back by popular demand, we have another video to share with you some of the things that I had in my van before and some of the things I no longer have in my van now. Now this is a very special edition because this is the kitchen edition. Now filming these has been very insightful because it has allowed me to kind of go back into the annals of time and see kind of the things that I've used and the evolution of where we are now. And so it's been super fun, but a lot of you were really curious about other items that I might have used in the past, but I've kind of moved away from, and I think that that is something that has a lot of value. Again, I mentioned in our first video that not every setup is going to work for every person. You might find something that you really love in theory, and then you use it and you're like, this doesn't take up the right amount of space, it's too bulky, it pulls too much power, it's just kind of cumbersome, I don't have a place to put this because I had to change something else. All of those things are very valuable pieces of your journey, and you will encounter those things. But today, I'm going to share a few of the things. I'll go to Walmart and show you the counterpart that you can get at Walmart versus what I have now, and we'll talk about why. And I think this will give you some insight as to why my life is a little different now and also how we got here. So buckle up and let's go. Whenever I first started out traveling, I had this exact Igloo cooler. It's a small cooler that has tiny wheels on it. I carried this thing around with me for the first little bit of my van journey, and I thought it was just great, except for it wasn't. Quickly learned that things were soggy. I would have to get ice all the time. It was just really problematic. And instead I decided that this was a better option. Instead of using one of those little ice chests, you know where I'm going with this. We're going inside the van. We have the SetPower DT45. Now the SetPower DT45 is a refrigerator that runs off of DC. It can also run off of AC, but I have it hooked up to DC so I can run it on my power stations. It is very efficient. At the same time, I have used other SetPower fridges as well. And throughout the time of my channel, you can see all of those in my playlist. So definitely go check those out if you're looking for a fridge. However, I would definitely suggest a fridge. And here is why. This is the DT45. It is one of the larger units. It is a dual zone, so it has a fridge freezer option or a freezer option or a fridge option. Right now I have this set up where this side is my freezer and this side is my refrigerator. And you can see there are two very decently sized zones here. This one is huge. It also has a basket inside that I can pull out so I can truly clean it, or I don't have to use the basket if I don't want to. Both sides have lights in them, so even in the darkness I can see what's going on without having to turn on lights, which is also a big plus from a cooler. And with this, again, everything is in good shape. I don't have to worry about it getting really awkwardly soggy, and I can control this from my phone on an app. In fact, there it is right there. I can at any point in time when I'm near it, just pull it up, see what the temperature is, change it if I want to, change it from eco to max if I want to cool it down faster or slower. And it is so nice because that is so much more efficient than all of the moisture. As I mentioned before, my food was getting soggy. I was having to buy ice, and overall, despite the fact that it was more efficient to get it in the moment, it became less efficient to deal with it over time, especially if I was in super remote areas. And so I just got really tired of it. The fridge, on the other hand, all I have to do is plug it in and just make sure I have power, which means drive around, which I already do. And then in that, just make sure that the food inside is consumed before it goes bad. So it was a much more efficient use of my time, energy, and effort. But then also, it allowed me to have foods that I couldn't otherwise have because of the ice and the grossness. So I could have things that could be refrigerated that wouldn't get slimy and gross like they would in the flowing water and ice situation, which was just bad. So I started out using these kinds of things because I already had them. And one of the things I noticed was when supplies were getting to a crazy point where I was just completely out of the food, I had these containers and I could stack them up like this, which was handy. But then it was harder to squeeze them under my bed. So I would run out of space in my little space much more frequently, and so I stopped using these kind of plastic style containers. Instead of those plastic containers, I now have these plastic containers which pop down into a much smaller footprint in the van, and so all I have to do when I want to use them is pop them out. That's it. It's also fit better in my fridge because as I use something, I can just kind of collapse it where the extra space is gone, so it can mold into more spaces within the space. So like if I have lunch meat in here and it starts out full and then I'm starting to use it, I can collapse down each layer and it'll lay differently in the refrigerator. And when I get down to that last little bit, realistically, there's enough space here that it still fits with the lid on. And so I can still have like lunch meat and stuff. So these are so much better, and I can carry many of these with me and it not take up but a tiny amount of space. So I definitely recommend these. I picked these up off of Amazon, but you can find these at Walmart sometimes. But make sure that they have the fully locking lid. So every side needs to be able to lock down, and that's what's going to keep it good. Now, with that, a few interesting things. If you do have these and they're starting to get a little bit more aged, we shall say, and you have a liquid in here, the lid is not going to hold as tightly on a liquid. So I wouldn't trust it with like soup or anything, you know? So there's the one negative to that. As they get older, whenever you first get them, they'll work great for that. But as you kind of get them and they start getting a little bit more squishy, yeah, don't put soup in them, but put solid items in these and they're awesome. I started out using a small pan like this, but one of the issues that I was having with it was that because I'm in such a small space, it would have this handle that I would just have to shove into different places. And over time, I ended up getting the cheap one to start out with, not this one specifically. But over time, that really messed up the handle. It started getting wobbly, and then it also warped. So I stopped carrying regular dishes like this. Now, this is one of the things I get asked the most questions about. This is what has replaced my pan setup. And I have several different versions of this, and I travel accordingly with them. This is the Ridge Monkey, and you'll notice this Ridge Monkey has a very small handle section right there. And you're thinking, okay, well, how do you use that? Because you clearly can't just pick it up. It's hot. It's a metal pan. Well, the reason why I replaced my regular pans with Ridge Monkey is because they aren't just a single pan, they're a multi-pan. And I don't talk about it as much lately because, you know, a lot of people heard me brag about it, and then you couldn't get them in the United States for a while, but they do have them again in the States. So you can take this, and this pan right here is their deep pan. So it's a pretty big boy, you can see. But is it just one pan? No, it is not. It's actually two big pans. So this has your cooktop on it that you can do all your meats. You can get a nice little line sear on it, which is awesome. And then you have this guy, which is the legit deep pan. Now, inside this, I can store stuff, which is also super awesome. So I have some more of my little collapsible containers in here. I have some of my seasonings in here. But overall, this is awesome because, again, you have two pans. Now, you're probably asking, though, well, again, how do I pick this up? It has detachable handles. In fact, right down here in this little neoprene sleeve, these are the handles. So you can detach the handles and then store them away. So it takes up less space, it gets banged up less. And you guys have seen me demo this thing lots of times if you've been on the channel for a while, but if not, check out my camp cooking playlist and you can see exactly how it works. But this has fully replaced, and I do mean fully replaced, any kind of other kinds of pans that I might be interested in. I am not super excited about pans and cookware, but I hands down have loved the Ridge Monkeys. I started out carrying a regular tea kettle that would whistle because I wanted to be able to have that notification of, hey, the water's ready. And I really like whistling tea kettles. There's a couple things that I found to be problematic, however. Number one, as you notice, it takes up quite a bit of space. And again, space is a big deal. And number two, sometimes whenever you get in here, these, especially the cheaper ones, they start to hold any kind of moisture if you have condensation in the van, and so you'll start getting a little bit of interior rust. Now, my kettle was replaced by an electric kettle, and then it was replaced again by this kettle. This is the kettle of my choosing, the Joule electric kettle. This thing is amazing. I definitely recommend this to anyone who has power. I can heat and boil water in about 4 minutes and use very, very little power. But in the meantime, I can have just about anything. I can also heat soups in this and other liquid items. And this has been just so clutch. Having those extra things that I can do with it by far made it better than having the other kettle. The other kettle, if I would have put soup in there, it would have been disgusting. I wouldn't have been able to get it out of all the little nooks and crannies. But this I can because it's super easy, but then also it has 3 easy settings on there for whatever you're going to be doing. You can pop popcorn in here. I don't love the popcorn setting, I will say that, but I can cook my food or I can heat up water for tea, coffee, etc., all the things. And this is so efficient. Again, it's a perfect size for me because this is big enough for 1 huge can of soup, and it's big enough for me to make a mountain house and still have extra water for a cup of tea. It's so nice, and again, I don't have to worry about all the things with it being bulky and weird, because even though it does have kind of a decent size footprint, it fits onto my shelf perfectly, and I don't have to worry about all the extra moving parts. For example, this has a lid and the thing, that's it. There's the cord in there, but it all kind of goes together, and then when you pop it down, it's just one solid unit. It's not like the I'm a Little Teapot song where I have a spout and a handle that I have to then figure out how they fit into something. This is very straightforward. It is super easy, and even though I really did like my collapsible kettle because it was a smaller footprint, I like this one better for the overall use because I can heat up so many things in it. So this has been a huge game changer. So I used to carry one of these. It wasn't quite as fancy as this one with all the measurements on the side, but I got it at Walmart. So the way that this works is the handles actually fold in, which is really great whenever you're like camping in a tent, which is why I got it. But the problem is, over time, this little area right here, it starts to get a little bit weird. So it starts to get to where this part starts to wobble a little bit. So when you're holding it and it has hot liquid, you don't feel as comfortable. Now, as for that cup, you saw that the handle wasn't great. So I found this much better handle, and it's a carabiner. So I can clip it onto a backpack if I'm going out on a hike. I can clip this to my van, so it's got a place to hide whenever I'm not using it. And on top of that, it's actually a bigger cup. So the cup itself is larger than that old cup. And not only is it larger, but it actually has a real lid on it. Now, with this cup, I can prepare a really nice cup of hot cocoa. I could do hot chocolate. I could just drink regular stuff out of it. If I want to keep it nice and insulated, I just put the lid on top and then it stays warm for almost ever. The other cup didn't have one of those. So this is really nice because of this handle, but also because it insulates better. And again, this was just an Ozark Trail. It's hard to see. The branding is almost gone on it, but that's because it has been well loved in my van. And I definitely would recommend, if you do see one of these carabiner cups, specifically the ones with lids, whether it's Ozark Trail or any other company, consider it. Very, very good. Best cost of like $8, I think, ever. That's how much it was when Riley and I got these like couple 3-4 years ago, I guess. We've had these forever, but I beat this thing up. The only thing I will say is I do eventually need to replace the lid on this because the lid it looks gross. It does. It looks gross, but it's actually fine. It's just stained and cracked because it's been used too much. So eventually I'll find some new lids, maybe at Walmart, maybe on Amazon. But yeah, this cup, superior. As you guys can see, there are a lot of things that I have changed in the van for various reasons, and the evolution of my van journey has been quite interesting, to say the least. I enjoy testing out a lot of things, and some of those things have created this insight as to, oh, I want to try this instead, and then I liked it better. In other situations, it has been that something has been used to a failure, and in other situations even, it has been that I've just had a lot of chaos going on, and I needed to either get something that would fit into a specific space because otherwise, oh my gosh, or things have just kind of been a wonky donkey moment where I had to make brash choices. And all of those things are what happen when you're on the road, realistically.